Okay. Check, 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 check. Audio on? Yes. Audio delayed by 50 milliseconds? Yes. Audio got the NS1 stereo plug-in? Yes. And some EQ? No, no EQ. Compressor? No. Noise gate? No. Channel matrix? Bus mixer? No, no, no. So I guess it's just the NS1 noise suppressor that is set on 50%. Holy cow. That's a lot. There's not that much background noise, is there? Let's drop it down to 20. That's, well, maybe there is that much background noise. Hello, Bill. Welcome, sir. So we're running on YouTube today at 1080p 60, and I've got the noise suppressor set. There was some outside noise from the mowers and the blowers and the edgers, and at some point the trash guys. For some reason, everybody decides to come on Wednesdays. Hello, Rick. Good to see you. Glad to have you. And I was hoping you guys we're using YouTube 1080p 60 so that we can do low latency, because I want to get your input as quickly as possible on things today. So that's why we are doing what we're doing with 4K 30 or 60. Hello, Chad. Good to see you, or good to be seen by you. Hello, Tim. Mowers and blowers. Yes, that's right. Oh my. YouTube 4K 30 and 4K 60 don't allow you to stream with low latency or ultra low latency, only with normal latency, which ends up being about 13 seconds. And that's too long for us to have give and take, I think, because by the time you hear it, ponder it, and respond to it, I've moved on. I'm just like that. Anyway, so I want to get, there's no noise, no ambient noise except this PC and one I'm building in the back that's burning in. It's a beast. I'll tell you about it in a minute. But what I want to get from you guys is, can you hear any of that? I mean, I'll be quiet for a second. And what you'll hear as I'm quiet is I think you'll hear the noise to signal ratio. You'll hear the noise increase. Let's try it for 10 seconds. Did you hear an increase in noise as time passed? Or did you hear anything? All right, Bill said no background noises here heard. Thank you, Bill. That's very helpful, because I've got the noise suppressor set really, really low. Now, the mowers and blowers and edges, oh my, have stopped. I think they're done for the day. I think they're done for the day. So yeah. So if you're ever in a situation, NS1, yes, thank you, Bill. I was just about to explain that. If you're in a situation where you've got some background noise that you need to get rid of, like air conditioners or computer fans, or anything that's pretty steady, pretty normal, you can find the frequency in the audio mixer and use the EQ to pull out those frequencies. Sometimes I'll do that. Bill says all he heard was the Bluetooth noise from the phone to truck radio. Well, golly. Bill says auto shop equipment noises get handled well. Good, good. The NS1 is a VST3 plugin, which is a little piece of software, actually probably a driver. I don't know, something like that. Anyway, it's available from a company called Waves Audio at waves.com. And if you catch it on sale, you can get it for about 20, 30 bucks. And it's a nice little audio thingy to have in your audio tool bag, your virtual tool bag. Hey, Otis, welcome. Glad you're here. Houston should be finally cooling down right about now. And I find the NS1 to be really helpful. I use it here at the studio to try to cut out any ambient noise. You know, air conditioners in the summer. Right now, we're in that great fall season where we're not running anything. But fans from computers, fans from anything else. Also, I use it at the church because I'm taking the main feed, the main audio feed. I'm taking the house feed. One of these days, I'll get around to figuring out how to take a customized feed just for the mix, just for me, a mix just for me. But right now, I'm taking the house feed, and they've got some reverb on some of the singers that I think is too much reverb. I think the person putting the reverb on there doesn't know what they're doing, and they're doing a lot of it, and it's not my bailiwick. So I can use the NS1 to take out some of the reverb. Didn't know that. It's pretty cool. So it's a good kind of, you know, it's not a super specialized tool. It's more like a pair of pliers. You know, you can use it for lots of different things, and it's really easy to use. And I think you can probably download a free trial, like a 30-day trial or something like that, and give it a shot. So NS1 noise filter from Waves Audio. Shout out to Paul Richards from PTZ Optics for turning me on to that, you know, probably 6 or 7 years ago. Thank you, Paul. All right, how are we doing on time here? We're about ready to go. All right, so let's get rid of this from the screen. We'll get rid of that from the screen. And let's go back here. And we'll bring you guys up to date real quick. Bill's here, Rick's here, Chad's here. All right. Tim is here. And Otis is here. And Bill, as usual, is very helpful with his comments. All right. All right, so it's showtime. Let me hit the purple button on my X keys, XK80. Here we go. Right. Hat tip to Martin Kay at Zen Video in Manchester, England, for the Jaws of Death opening. I don't know that he calls them that, but there are days when it seems like the world is closing in, you know? So today's show is a compilation of the last 3 weeks where we've talked about the new vMix 27 beta. vMix 27 beta. And this beta, as a general observation, has had more releases to it than any beta I have seen vMix release. I think currently we're up to 0.47. And let's check real quick and see what is the current version of vMix being. If I were to download a free trial today, I would download 26.0.0.45. So the current beta in 27 has more releases than the official release of vMix 26 with 45. Part of that is because vMix 27 beta came into the world, or was released to the world as a beta, with more releases on it. More work had been done on this software than I think just about any other release of vMix. And part of the reason is that it contains 3 prominent features. I won't say they're major features because I consider one of them kind of a minor feature, but I think it's prominent. It's a prominent minor feature. So yeah. So anyway, give me a pass on that one. So the first major feature is the Zoom integration, which I want to come back to obviously and talk about. The second major feature, which may have been super easy to implement, I don't know, was using the new AV1 codec as a streaming encoder in vMix, and HEVC as well. Both of those were sort of added at the same time. The HEVC probably requires an NVIDIA card or any card with the HEVC chip on it, and the AV1 requires any card with the AV1. Is it a chip or a driver or something? Anyway, it's important. I think the 4000 series NVIDIA cards have that AV1 chip in it, and that's why I picked up a 4000 series card just to do that. In fact, I think we're streaming AV1 today. Let me check. Yeah, AV1 1080p 60 at 4 megabits per second. So yeah, and we did a lot of tests, as you'll see on our YouTube page, testing the AV1 at different resolutions and frame rates to find out what the sweet spot was and just how low we could go. The third feature, which is not a major feature, but I consider it more than just a minor feature, is the modifications to the layers. It used to have been called multi-view. Now it's called layers, where you can do all sorts of fun things in layers. It just makes it easier to work with, more like Photoshop or something that you're used to working with in the past. And for vMix, this is not a new feature. Rather, it's polishing an old feature. And I think we're seeing a lot of that in vMix, and I'm really glad for it, because some things get, sometimes with new software. I remember it used to happen with VidBlaster all the time. They'd roll out something, or Mike would roll out something that was, mostly there. And then that's as far as it got. It never got tweaked. They never went back, and he never went back and reworked it and smoothed it out and made it more user-friendly and worked any of the teeny little bugs out of it. You just sort of did with it. And maybe it's all worked out now. I haven't looked at VidBlaster in maybe 8 years, maybe longer. But it's nice to see vMix going back and polishing and making improvements to already existing products. They did that when they redid Instant Replay a couple versions ago. And that was a pretty big deal, at least for those of you that were doing replay. For folks in the church business, what are you going to replay? A baptism? I guess that's about it. So let me go back now that we've talked about the three, what I think are the 3 key features in vMix 27. The fourth key feature is really the first key feature, which is the fact that this is a version of vMix. This is the 47th version of vMix 27 and I'm running it right now. And I checked a little while ago, and this is the latest. This was the same one that we ran the show on last week. There may be some other, little bugs that get accumulated along the way. I still don't think they fixed the bugs on the Zoom resolution. But that was just a selection issue. I'm sure it'll get fixed at some point. vMix Zoom integration. This is just Tom talking now, but I think it was intended. Welcome, Bayview support. Glad to have you. I think the vMix Zoom integration was intended to sort of mimic vMix Call and allow you to use Zoom, because lots of people know how to use Zoom. More people know how to use Zoom than know how to use vMix Call. I'm sure of that. And so to bring a new person into your broadcast, if they can come in, if you send them the credentials for a Zoom meeting, they're in their comfort zone. They're doing something they already know how to do. They've already worked out what they need to. At least you hope they have. And so you're bringing in a caller on Zoom into vMix. And immediately you could see it coming. Immediately vMix got pressure from all of the folks that were doing Zoom integration on behalf of their clients, and they were doing it the old-fashioned way, the NDI and the virtual audio cables and screen capture and whatever you could to get Zoom into vMix. And there was immediate pressure on vMix to figure out a way to get a galley view, or how to deal with breakout rooms or different things like that. And so we can see that there's going to be some ways that, it's going to give vMix, frankly, a path to improvement as they look at some of those suggestions. And I think they've begun to implement some of them already in the last couple of releases of the vMix 27. We hope to have a Zoom person on this show sometime soon. Let's put it that way, because there's no dates and there's no confirmation. There's just an invitation, and it'll be interesting to get some of the background as much as they'll share of it, because I think they're probably pretty tight-lipped about some of this stuff, and rightfully so. It's their proprietary stuff, not ours. But hoping to get some of the backstory about how vMix came to connect to Zoom so beautifully. And it does work. It does work beautifully. I'm very, very impressed with that. I'm a little disappointed that you have to have such an expensive Zoom license in order to take advantage of 1080p. But Zoom has been, since very early days when Zoom was, something nobody knew about, Zoom was very bandwidth frugal. And I think they still are very bandwidth frugal. And they see that as a way to keep their costs down by not letting people, use 4K or anything stupid like YouTube does. Can you imagine? We stream 4K 60 to YouTube for free, and YouTube re-encodes it into all sorts of different resolutions, so that all sorts of different people with all sorts of devices can watch it. And it doesn't cost me a penny. And it only costs you the annoyance of whatever ad YouTube may pop up at some point. So there. Hey, Kent, glad you're there. We'll get to your question here in just a sec. So we'll be interested to get the Zoom guy on the show and talk more about Zoom. As a vMix user myself with this show, my guess is that if I had a guest, well, case in point, the Zoom guy is probably going to come on the show using Zoom. So I guess I will be using Zoom as part of my show, because there'll be people that are more comfortable coming in as Zoom. Or it's not that they're more comfortable. It's just it's the path of least resistance for them. You want a Zoom? Oh yeah, Zoom. It's great. I know Zoom. And pow, they're right there in the program. For folks that do any kind of talk shows, using remote guests, or for people that are managing shows that use remote hosts and guests, I think this will be a great way to onboard guests. And we'll see how vMix handles the whole green room concept. Right now, you can do a green room with vMix Call with a series of shortcuts that basically switch audio and video sources to the caller. And it's a little, I won't say clumsy or clunky, but it's a little complicated, especially for somebody that's doing it for the first time and is not used to routing audio or video. It can be a little challenging. I'd love to see that with vMix Call, I'd love to see a vMix Call green room feature. Don't know how hard it would be, don't know what it would look like, model it after any green room you can think of. John Mahoney's software, Live to Air, has got a great green room concept, and I know the vMix guys don't want to create products that are already in the industry. I get that. That's why they didn't go after a Restream.io type restreaming feature in vMix when Wirecast did. I think Wirecast may regret it because of all the maintenance it requires, and it's probably a good idea that vMix didn't, because it wasn't their sweet spot. But I see the vMix Call green room as really in their sweet spot. It really makes sense to do that. And it would make even more sense now to be able to integrate the Zoom caller into that in a way that, I got distracted by Bill's question. Bill was like, something about losing audio. And I was like, oh my gosh, don't tell me I'm losing audio. All right. Do y'all hear that? Bass from a passing automobile? You don't hear it. Okay. Well, my chair was rattling. So one of the improvements and major features that I would love to see, that is sort of a convergence now of vMix Call and Zoom, is a vMix green room. Doesn't have to be a vMix Call green room, but a vMix green room that brings in a I don't know, maybe it brings in more than vMix Call and Zoom. Maybe it brings in SRT. Although I'm not a fan of using SRT for a guest because of the latency involved. But I guess you could. You could do it. Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk some more about that. So that's my thoughts so far on the vMix Zoom integration. Double thumbs up on that. Let's continue to hear from the Zoom people, what kinds of things they want, and as deliberate as vMix is about everything they do, I encourage them to continue to be deliberate in picking which types of challenges they want to take and which ones they want to say, that's not in our sweet spot, not in our roundhouse, not in our area of expertise. We want to keep the main thing, which is vMix. And I get that. You don't need to duplicate all the features in Zoom. And I don't think they feel the pressure to do that either. Second major feature that I want to talk about is the integration with AV1. What a huge deal this is. And many people will say, well, Tom, I don't even have the right video card to use AV1. That's okay. You will. Eventually. You will. The system that I have at my church has got an NVIDIA GTX 750 Ti in it. Won't do AV1. We really could use to do AV1 because of the bandwidth challenge. And I think a ton of churches are in that way. And I think we're going to find at some point there's going to be a relatively inexpensive video card. Well, I guess there's already the Intel ARC cards that have the AV1 on it. And I need to get one of those because I want to see if you can run those parallel to a NVIDIA card. I mean, to do that, I put that on my list of things to do. But I think AV1 is going to be huge for folks that are in the field, that are working with a hotspot or any kind of wireless setup, and their bandwidth is limited, or their bandwidth is up and down, and they have to pick the lowest of the low. Having AV1 will allow them to, I think, cut their bandwidth. Well, let's see, we're doing 1080p 60 right now at 4 megabits per second. but the testing I did the other day said that we could have done 1080p 60 at like 1.5. Now it wasn't as good. There were some glitches in it, which is why I'm not doing it right now. But prior to today, when I did 1080p 60, which was probably, maybe a year ago, maybe 6 months ago, I don't know, somewhere back in time. 1080p 60, I would stream at 6 megabits per second to get a good, solid, reliable stream. When we were doing 4K 60, we were streaming at 14, but I only had 20 available. So I broke the 50% rule. OG is saying in the chat that the ARC started at 110 and go up to 400 on Newegg. So there you go. For $110, you can get an AV1 card. Pass the hat after church, you can get $110. Heck, let me know. I'll make a contribution to your church if you want to get an ARC card. I would have loved to have had, when we were doing 4K 60, I would love to have had the AV1 available. And we may get back to it. I think I've got something I need to work out on my system so far as recording goes. Because when I start recording, the render times go up, and that's not a good thing. So AV1 is going to benefit. AV1 is going to be one of those things that you don't need to learn how to use. You just get the right hardware and you change a setting and you reap the benefits of it forever. And that is a big, big, big deal. That means everybody, regardless of their expertise in technology, can take advantage of it. It's not going to be just for us, hoity-toity egghead tech guys. It's going to be something that anybody can do. And it'll be just as simple as making a couple of changes to your setup, and then boom, you're there forever. Now, at this point, YouTube is the only one that I have streamed AV1 to, and I understood from some folks last week or the week before that you could do it to Facebook as well. And we'll find other streamers, or CDNs rather, other content delivery networks that people are using will begin to adopt AV1 because there's a financial incentive for them to do that. If they're paying for bandwidth, and they can take AV1 in and or send AV1 out, it's going to be a pretty big deal. So I think in my mind, it seemed like a small change to vMix, but it's going to have a huge, huge impact in the future. And it's probably going to be one of those huge, huge impacts that everybody forgets about. I mean, it's like, when we went from seat belts that buckled around the waist to seat belts that came over the chest. And, what did it do to the statistics so far as people in automobile accidents? And now we don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. Yeah, big deal. Yeah, and OG says, and for people that are paying for storage, AV1 will produce a smaller file. The last thing is my not major but not minor, the changes to the layers and the way layers can be manipulated and edited. It took me 5 minutes to figure out most of it. Thank you to those that to Gunnar and others that explained to me how to change from one layer to another layer on the fly more quickly than I was doing it. Although I do think my idea of just clicking on the numbers was a good one, but nevertheless, the changes to layers and allowing you to use guidelines and to drag and drop, and not drag and drop, but to drag and to edit more quickly on the fly is going to make it so much easier for people that are using layers on a regular basis. And these are going to be folks that are doing more complicated shows, that are bringing lots of vMix inputs together in the same input for one reason or another. And I think on the last show we put together, let's see if I've still got it. We put together, yeah, here it is. We put together just a quick, we'll turn that off because all of this is in one show, but we put together a quick compilation that used a time clock and my video, and then right up here is a vMix call video that's just not populated because I'm not doing a vMix call. And what I was trying to do was create a very quick and dirty return feed for somebody that was calling me, so that they could know what was going on time-wise. They could see me, they could see themselves. And maybe this was the program feed in the middle. I don't remember exactly how it ended up, really getting done. But let's see, what do we got here? We'll take that. Nope. I was clicking on the main. I was already on the main tab. Sorry about that. Oh, should have used merge. I love the merge. Oh, the merge is not going to work here because this guy right here, this is a mix input. That's why, because I wanted to be able to crop the background. And that's what a mix input allows you to do. So there we go. There we go. We're good. So kudos to vMix on the changes, on the modifications to layers, which was previously named multi-view. Now, to the ginormous elephant in the room. This is the giant, and for everybody that sees vMix for the first time, inevitably they are going to be critical of the vMix interface. Do we have a vMix interface we can show? No, we don't have one right now, but you know what the vMix interface looks like. It is familiar to those of us that have been using it for years and years and years, and we know where to go to find things. It's like when they changed from Windows 7 to Windows 8. You remember that? We went from Windows 7 to this tile-based monstrosity of Windows 8, which was, it was like new Coke. It was just resolutely bashed by all the people that were forced to use it or looked at using it. And I understand the risk of that. Well, I probably don't understand the risk of that. But Coke got smashed in the mouth. Microsoft got smashed in the mouth because they changed something that was hugely familiar, maybe not loved, but familiar. And I am split right down the middle on this. I would love to see vMix spend an entire release or more on changing the interface, the way it looks, the buttons, the inputs, all of that stuff, and improving the functionality of it for new users, making it simpler to operate and not having so many kind of convoluted things like on the in settings. Here's my best example. When we go to settings, and maybe they'll change this, there's a button called there's an option. It's not even a button. It's not a tab. It's just a menu on the left side. Let's make it a tab, called output/NDR/SRT. Well, we don't need to put all those on the same page. And when you go to it and you look down there, you've got outputs, and then you've got another kind of output, and then you've got another kind of output, an external output, and then you've got NDI outputs and audio outputs. And for somebody that doesn't know anything, this is hugely confusing. For somebody that's very, very, very familiar with this program, I have difficulty explaining it to other people because in addition to this output section, there's also external output and audio output. And yeah, it it is the amalgamation of knowledge and features over the years. And I get that. And it's like, okay, you know, how do we add more settings here without reshaping the menu? Well, we'll just have output slash NDI slash SRT. And are we going to have another slash after that? And I get it, Otis, that it's simpler than OBS, but OBS is designed by a committee. That's why it looks the way it looks. And I understand that what I'm asking for here is an incredibly difficult task. Not just the mechanics, you know, the coding of changing things around, but the idea of changing it in a way that improves it. We don't want to be Windows 8. We don't want this to be Windows 8. We don't want it to be Windows 11 either. We want it to be Windows 10 or Windows 7. I loved Windows 7. Windows 10, I love too. Windows 11, jury's still out on. Can't find things because they're not where they're supposed to be. That's the thing. You know, if vMix changes things, you can't find it the way it used to. One thing, if anybody from vMix is watching this or has made it this far into the show, if you do go this route, please, please, please protect shortcuts, activators, and scripts so that they continue to work regardless of what the web interface, what the user interface looks like. Don't make people have to rework their entire preset, their entire workflow to adapt to what vMix looks like in the future. Okay. That's it. That's me. Let's go to post show and talk to your comments. Ready? Let's go. Okay. All right, so we got a question from Kent. I'm going to rephrase it, Ken. Can Zoom and vMix Call be able to communicate with each other? Well, it depends on what you mean by communicate. You mean talk, sign language, text message? What are we talking about? So you want a vMix caller and a Zoom caller to be able to communicate with each other somehow. Well, I think the green room solution, which is the biggest solution, is probably the best solution. Can the vMix call messaging somehow connect to the Zoom messaging and vice versa? I don't know. I don't know if that's a possibility. I mean, I think technically it may just be a bridge too far. I don't know that Zoom would allow vMix to have access. Well, Zoom has allowed vMix access to its API in the in vMix Social. Yep. So if we had a Zoom caller on or a Zoom, I think all the comments in a Zoom room can be gleaned by vMix Social. That's a good question, Ken. But at this point, I don't know that there's a way. But if that's the kind of thing that you would like to see and is important to you, that's a great feature request, and that would be the feature requests forum on the vMix forums. So yeah. So Bill is saying the losing audio with more than one Zoom input gets solved. Yes, it got solved shortly after we did that incredibly long, tedious video about 4 weeks ago. As it turned out, vMix had only tested the Zoom with and the resulting Zoom audio with the master bus and the A and B buses, and they had not tested it with any of the other buses like C, D, E, F, and G. And I had enabled the C bus on the Zoom caller because that was what was routed to the big screen TV here that I use for my studio speakers. And it could have been it didn't have to be the big screen. It could have been anything that was on the C, D, E, F, or G channels, buses. And those were what caused the problem. So, yeah. And I think they fixed it pretty quickly. I mean, we went back and forth with them a bunch of times within a day or two, sharing files and error reports and that kind of stuff. And they got it nailed. So kudos to vMix for getting that one pretty quick. All right, so OG says, here's an interesting question for you. Does vMix have any plans to support Windows with ARM? What with, don't have the rest of that question. And last I heard, no. That they were saying in their sweet spot. But that's a good question for the vMix forum. In fact, I think there's been some discussion on the vMix forum about that one. So I would refer you to the vMix forum for that. Yeah. Yeah, that's my criticism right there. Windows 11 decided the things that you need to use on a regular basis are now buried in a menu that you can't find. There you go. Otis says that the vMix interface is simpler than the NewTek TriCaster. Is that what you're saying, Otis? I mean, I'm not putting words into your mouth. But I have never used or even touched. Nope, I've never touched a TriCaster. I've seen them. I've been within touching distance, but I've never touched one. Isn't that crazy? Welcome, Tim. vMix 27 puts Zoom on steroids. Interesting comment. Certainly brings Zoom into the vMix world in a much, much deeper, tighter way. And I know the vMix guys are thinking to themselves, wish we had done this before COVID. Zoom, I mean, vMix exploded during COVID anyway, but if vMix had this integrated Zoom feature, it would have just been nuclear. I wonder if vMix is going after Microsoft Teams now for integration. That would be the next step. Huh. Yeah. So Kent says, yes, talk to each other so we don't need virtual cable. Yes. Definitely make that suggestion, Kent. And again, I know you want the people you want person one to be able to talk to person two, but I see a larger solution. Of course, larger solution always means a more difficult solution too. But the green room where people can see each other, talk to each other, hear each other, and not be on the air, and also communicate with a host or a producer or somebody like that. Yep, that's right. Well, you're welcome. Kent is one of my favorite clients going back to the VidBlaster days. Yes, indeed. Kent's a good guy. All right, Bill says then it's time for me to test some more. This is in regards to the vMix Zoom audio issue with more than one caller. You're in trouble. That's all I can say. You miss the show, you miss the show. It's not like you can go back, you can scrub back and watch this show from the beginning right now, although you can. It's not like once the show's over, you can't go back and watch the pre-show and the post-show as part of the whole show. Well, you can do that too. So there. OG says during COVID, home streaming blew up to the point advising others paid all my bills. Oh, good. Good. That's good. So you were able to provide counsel to other folks that wanted to learn how to do remote streaming. Yeah, that's the bomb. And it did for me too. Every church in the world suddenly realized they were high and dry if they didn't get online somehow. Otis used NDI audio and video bypassing virtual audio cable. That was only after Zoom made NDI a thing. I mean, available. At one point, back in the bad old days, Zoom didn't have NDI. And yeah, you had to do everything by a grid of virtual audio cables. That was fun. I enjoyed that. All right, OG says, simple setup right now using an Apollo Twin for inputs and routing through RTX broadcast, so all my software will work with the Apollo. There you go. All right. Liking that. Let's check something here. All right. Well, I'm still high on vMix. I still think it's the best solution, even though I haven't used the other. I did use Wirecast a little bit as I was looking for options other than VidBlaster 10 years ago. Stephen Haywood graciously gave me a not for resale Wirecast license. And I used it because at that time, Wirecast was purported to be the best encoder, and it could encode more efficiently. VidBlaster was horrid and used Adobe Flash Media encoder. And I guess Wirecast was using FFmpeg. I don't know. But it was recognized as superior. And so I would just basically take a external output, audio and video from VidBlaster and pipe it into Wirecast and then let Wirecast stream it. The problem I had then was that I didn't have enough CPU horsepower to make it all work the way it needed to. And I got into trying to figure out Wirecast and eventually just I know what happened. So I had a client that Nick Davidson. Nick, shout out to you. Thank you. Who we built a couple of systems for a racetrack up in Michigan. And they demanded that we put vMix on it. And so I had to learn vMix. And the love affair began. Yeah. And there are people that still suffer through it today. Wirecast just released a new version that is subscription only, or perhaps if you had a permanent license, you're grandfathered in somehow. But apparently, it's really up unsettled the Wirecast wagon. And for those of you that have followed Wirecast at all, you know that they've tried to implement features that weren't quite fully baked when they said they were fully baked, like Rendezvous, which was the vMix call, um, the vMix call competition, the vMix call clone. Let's put it that way. Unfortunately for them, Rendezvous was also a particular feature in SRT, which made it a bit confusing. Not a good choice of names there. Got to think that stuff through. Yeah. So on a different note, I have got a fire-breathing dragon back here. What is this guy? He is a 16 core, 18 core Intel CPU. It's kind of old technology, but we needed the PCIe lanes. And there's nothing in the Intel, i3, i5, i7, i9 series that provided enough lanes. We had to go back to the 10th generation to a 10980XE and an X299 motherboard to get enough lanes to pull this off. Basically, we're doing 16 cameras, 16 SDI cameras. It's kind of funny. I remember talking with Martin Sinclair of vMix about this a while back. And, Martin, what's the most cameras that we're ever going to be able to get in vMix? And he's like, no way you will ever get more than 16. And now I'm reading in their what do they call the systems? Their reference systems, that they've got one reference system that'll do 24 cameras with the right hardware, of course. Yeah. But I think we're going to do a studio build, a prototype. Let's call it a prototype, which I'm sure other people have done this, but I want to build a prototype using a Xeon multi-core, like an 18 or 20 or 24 core CPU with one of those CEB motherboards. That is, it's got, how on the back of a computer case you've got 7 slots, but virtually no card has 7 has 7 slots for cards. Or excuse me, no motherboard has 7 slots for cards until you get into these really higher end server quality stuff. And so I'm looking for something that's got 7 X16 slots, and put a big hunkin' CPU in there, and just see how many cameras we can get off of it at 1080 30, at 1080 60, at 4K 30, at 4K 60, and then eventually 8K. Yep. Because 8K is the new 4K. 4K is the new HD. HD is the new standard definition. Think that through for a little bit. Tommy, welcome. Tommy says, need a show on online church services, online only. I'll have to do some research on that one, Tommy. I know there's some churches that are still doing a hybrid where a lot of their congregation does not physically attend, either because they're infirm, or they're remote, or they are continue to be concerned about some transmission of disease. Well, there you go. There you go. Maybe 8K is too low. Maybe we need to look at 4K. I'm hoping that vMix is looking at 8K. Ah, okay, okay. Um, yeah, Tommy, I've seen, you know, anybody with, but you're talking about a service, not just a sermon or a teaching. You're talking about the entire service. That's a good idea. All right. I'll take that call. I will. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to flip out of here. Won't be here next week. Going to be on the road next week, going up to visit my mom. She's 90. And we were talking the other day. I said, Mom, you haven't ever been 90 before, have you? And she's like, I don't think I have. I said, what's it like? And she said, well, it's kind of like before. Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys. And now that Eric's here, we can start the show. No, we are. I do need to run, but I appreciate you guys, and I will not be here next week. And I'll make sure that there's a note to that effect. But I will be here in 2 weeks, and maybe soon we'll have somebody from Zoom come talk to us. That'd be good. That'd be good. I appreciate you guys more than you know, and I'll catch you soon.